Might I suggest a side of citadels with your cosmic encounter? Or perhaps a pairing of Robinson Crusoe with Zulkin? Oh, you want actual food? Well, you're in the wrong place. Welcome to Tabletop Shop.
Hello and welcome back to the Tabletop Shop podcast. Insert new intro line here. Oh. Well, anyways, I'm one of your co-hosts, Nate Clark, and as always, seated across the country from me is your other co-host, Mr. Cody Pennington.
You know, it's almost like since this is the second to last podcast episode, at least for a while, we're just not trying anymore. We just don't care.
Cody, I'm not going to lie to you. Full disclosure, I stopped trying a long time ago, my friend.
So are you trying less now, or is this just...
This is
maybe
negative
I'm just
effort.
making things up. It's pretty good, pretty good. This is 0 degrees Kelvin.
Kelvin. It's a good name for a podcast.
Why? Why would you say that?
What?
Defend yourself, Nate. You need
kinda-
reasons for statements.
Kind of came out of nowhere. It's really weird. There's like I'm facing a brick wall, and part of the mortar looks like is kind of in the shape of this Serenity ship from Firefly.
Is this like inspirational for you? Is this a good way for you to think? As you just kind of stare at a brick wall and then you just imagine the way that life has just kind of stopped you in your tracks, and you know,
I mean,
it's
kind
just
of.
it's inevitable.
Didn't you do that as a kid with like the cottage cheese walls? You know, like just kind of stare at them and look for pictures or at least clouds. Right?
Actually, I would. Yeah, like the plastered ceiling, and you just kind of like look,
yeah.
and there's like all these weird little shapes. Yeah, I'll do that. Heck,
Back
I
in the
still
good
do
old
that,
days, before any sort of technology existed, I guess.
Nate. The true analog, authentic ways that we entertained ourselves. Let's bring those back.
Okay, Cody, I got a good intro question for you here. All right?
We'll see. We'll see.
Because again, it's a series of intro questions. We're going to do something kind of fun here, which is I'm going to ask you a question, and then your answer, the next question will be based on your answer to the previous question, essentially.
Is it like
Okay.
you ask a question, I give an answer, and then the follow-up is why? Because that's not super exciting.
Let's go with yes and no.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Theoretically, the questions will get harder as we go. We've got 5 of them, okay?
Are there correct answers? Like, do I
No.
get points for this?
No, this is all in your opinion.
It's subjective. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to get 5 out of 5 no matter what.
Yes, right. It's just about the challenge, okay?
Okay. Lay it on me.
Cody, name a game with woodland creatures.
Everdell.
Okay.
Boom.
What's your favorite mechanism in that game?
I guess worker placement, just to be boring and not think any longer than I have to.
Okay. What's another game with worker placement that you like?
Viticulture.
Okay. What's something you don't like about viticulture?
Race mechanic.
For scoring? Okay.
Yes.
Final question. How would you fix that?
Set number of rounds. Yeah. Or end game trigger condition. That's kind of a race. Yeah.
Set number of rounds. Would that work with viticulture very well?
I don't know. It's just I felt all this pressure, like I just need to give you an answer really, really quickly. So I was like, I'm just going to make a fool out of myself and just say some stuff, you know. Here's the thing. Viticulture doesn't need to be fixed. But that is a thing sometimes that after you play a bunch of games, it's like, well, I would like to try to get the highest score possible, though. Like, wouldn't that be cool? So what you end up doing is you have a game. Like, I think you and I both had this encounter that we talked about recently where we played a game and, like, got to... Like, I let Kirsten get to, like, 24 points, like, at the end of a round, so it didn't trigger the end. And then I used that opportunity to eke myself right up next to it so I could try to get as far past it as possible. So, like, that's kind of fun, but it gets a little bit boring after a while.
I like that you said you let Kirsten get to 24 points as if you're, like, manipulating how well she does.
I guess I took advantage of the situation. How about that?
That's funny.
Yeah, I'm scheming like I will allow you to have this many points and no more.
Something I like would be something I've come to appreciate are like player driven endgame triggers. So like it's not a set number of rounds, but it's like well, for example, so I just played Nucleum recently, like that has player driven triggers, endgame triggers, right? It's like here's these like
Yeah.
whatever 5 or 6 different triggers. Once, 2 or 3 of them have actually been triggered, then the game's going to end. But that's entirely up to how you're playing the game as far as like how quickly that happens, right? So that's a pretty cool thing. It probably requires more balancing, but it's a cool idea that I like seeing in games, and that could work in viticulture.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do like that mechanism because it's just sort of a timer that you can put in there without it being as much of a race or it's like the best of both worlds in a way, you know?
Well, but again, like you said, it's not like viticulture needs to be fixed. It's very good how it is. But
Yes.
since I brought up Nucleum, let's talk about my new play this week, Cody. My new game, Spotlight.
Nate, you've done it.
I've done it, man. I finally played Nucleum. You harassed me into cooperation, and I played Nucleum.
The angels are rejoicing for the young lad that has finally come home. Nate, tell us about Nucleum.
It's truly a blend, in my opinion, of Brass and Barrage. And that's weird because Martin Wallace wasn't involved, right? So it's like, it feels like it's pulling some things from Brass, but the Brass designer is not involved in this. However, you do have Simone Luciani who did Barrage. So, and it feels more like Barrage than Brass to me. But enough comparing it to other things. Nucleum is essentially yet another complex networking game about taking fun actions to produce resources, using those resources to energize buildings and score points and unlock technologies and all those fun, like the mechanism mishmash. But what I like about this actually is that it doesn't feel like a mechanism salad. Like I've played some games that have a lot of mechanisms, but the mechanisms, they mesh together, but in a very unsatisfying way where it's like, here's this mechanism over here and that one over there. And like, they're all just kind of in the same game. Stefan Feld games sometimes feel like that. So this one is like everything blends a lot more nicely and flows, pretty smoothly and feels like one big machine kind of. And it's impressive, man. It's very impressive. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I don't think it's quite as clean as the Barrage. It's not as clean as Barrage or Brass, I think. It's got a little bit more going on, but it's also a bit easier in a way, I think, than Barrage, in that resources aren't quite as tight. Like Barrage is like
it's less punishing.
Well, it's less punishing too, because you have like these scoring goals that you can attain. Barrage has that too, but in Barrage, it's a lot harder to actually score them. And in Nucleum, it's got more of it's almost like a Great Western Trail thing where like during your turns, you're accumulating stars. And then when you take a recharge turn, you will spend all of those stars to like, sell your cows on this track somewhere, right? And then, however high up you go, you will trigger a scoring thing for the end of the game and a multiplier. It's cool. I like how it works. It's a fun mechanism. And I like that sometimes you're going to lose all your stars no matter what. And so it's like, okay, I've got 30 stars, but actually I want to only go on like the 24 spot because of its location, right? So I like that. It's fun. The game looks a little... I don't love the look, especially comparing it to Barrage. Barrage has an incredibly cool, just like vibe. Nucleum's a little more like, it's just like a bunch of bright colors everywhere. It doesn't look as clean, but it doesn't look bad either. So yeah, no, it's a great game. I will be playing it again. Well, actually, by the time this comes out, I'll have played it again. But yeah, I'll be playing it again in a couple days here, trying a 3-player game and seeing how that goes.
Ooh,
so
the legendary 3-player game. Dude, that makes me really happy. Not just happy that you played it, but that you actually enjoyed it. Because I would have been really sad if like I kept hyping this up and you're like, yeah, I don't see it, man. It sucks. And,
right. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I wasn't sure like during the first half of the game because it's like there's the game. There's only a few things that you do. There's only a handful of actions, and they're all relatively straightforward. But the rules overhead is still, pretty high. Like you need to understand how the game works, how the networking functions, in order to like not just be messing everything up, right? So.
Yeah, I think you're right that there's a lot of things going on, but it doesn't feel like a mechanism cell. It just feels like there's lots of different components that have been tied together in a really cool way. And I definitely agree with the barrage and brass comparison. I think it has a lot more barrage than it does brass, though.
Yeah,
because
I
I think
agree.
really all it takes from brass is some of the networking concepts, including like how you can place buildings and where you build from, and maybe even a little bit how you spend resources. But yeah,
Right.
it has a lot of, I think, components more from Barrage, which makes sense if it has one of the crossover designers,
Yeah.
especially that I love that system where you have like a turn to try to generate as much stuff as you can. And if you generate enough, you can use that to like power or activate something. It's pretty cool. So it's not like this accumulative thing. It's like you have to build up your resources and then use them all at once.
And that's
then it
kind
has
of
that
like
little contract system too.
that's kind of like Barrage in a way too, where it's like, okay, I need to use the water that's on the board. I need to pull it from this location, send it through that turbine. It's just that Barrage
Yeah.
is more punishing because everyone can use the water, right? And it might get routed somewhere. It's a little bit more. It's harder to control in Barrage, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to this, where people can't use, like the coal is still a public resource. But even then, it has an infinite supply. It's just about the price that'll change. But
Yes, which gets harder and harder.
your uranium, nobody can take. It's just about, having it in the network so that you can actually use it. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear how your 3-player experience goes, and I don't know, see where it falls.
yeah, I'm looking
on
forward to
your
it.
top hundo list.
Cody, did you play anything new since we last recorded?
Yes. So I saw in an email that you sent to one of our, well, like our only fan, I guess.
Whoa,
not one of our
whoa.
fans. Not only fans. We're not talking that. No.
For the record, I did not send an email to anybody on OnlyFans.
No. Yeah. To our good bud who emails us now and then, and you indicated that you were hoping I would play the Viticulture expansion soon and talk about it. And at that
Yes.
point, I already had. I just forgot to talk about it.
Lame.
But here's the thing. Since we're only talking about one game, I'm actually not going to talk about that. So I'm just saying I haven't.
the tease is real. The tease is
I
real.
have played Formaggio, so there's that.
Formaggio
what
and
I have
well,
played-
so you haven't played Arbioculture then?
No,
Whatever.
no, because we've only played one game. Now, It does say that you can't play with both expansions, but I am convinced,
Sure.
looking at it, that with 2 players, you have enough components to play with both expansions. Maybe it just becomes too hectic. I don't know, but
Yeah, and-
I do think it's possible.
Probably you want to try them each individually anyways before you blend it all.
Yeah, you got to get the flavor of each one. And
Right.
they definitely have different flavors just from looking at the rules for the other one. But what I will discuss is my playing of Everdell Duo, which I bought on a whim when I saw that it existed, and I was like, I haven't bought a game in a while. I know I'm moving soon, and
But I need
sold-
that dopamine hit.
Right? You got to get it. It's like, it's been too long. My heart is heavy. My soul needs to be filled, and so I filled it with Everdell, and I was not dissatisfied.
All right, man.
What you laughing at? I'm getting
That is just funny.
serious and real here. Nah, not really. I'm gonna pull up Everdell Duo so I can gaze upon its beauty on Board Game
Hey,
Geek
good thing
once
you bought
more.
it before it increased in price by 50%, like every other new game on the market.
I guess games basically are produced in China, aren't they?
Pretty much entirely, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Everduel. Everduel. Yeah, I can call that Everduel.
Dude, missed opportunity.
Was pretty fun. It was quite stellar. Because I sold my Everdell collection as a part of my getting rid of everything. Because we like never get it to the table. It's like I like the game, but I was becoming slowly disenchanted with it, and Kirsten has a hard time enjoying it because she likes the pretty critters, but you have to
Dude.
get really strong synergies in this game if you want to do well, and that takes a lot of focus.
Why did you not get it to the table? Was it because you had added in so many expansions that it was like too much of a game to pull out?
Well, I think it was a large part of it is because Kirsten wasn't a mega huge fan of the
Okay.
system, at least. And I think I also slowly, like I said, became like a little bit less enthused with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, then there's all the expansions and everything. So I was thinking Everdell Duo could be a good option to get that maybe has a streamlined version of the system that also is quicker to set up and quicker to play, and then I can still have that Everdell experience. And that's almost exactly what it was, but they satisfyingly change up a few things. So there's a bit of a timer system built into it where there's two little tokens that have 6 spaces on a track they have to move along. So basically, there are 12 turns that will happen for a round. Unlike Everdell, where if you like play your resources right, you can really draw it out and you can do lots more things and you can go beyond. Like, sure, you have 2 workers, but maybe you had just the right combination of the cards and you got lots of resources and you keep doing all these things. Boom, boom, boom. No, like every round will end after 12 turns. But you can kind of manipulate how those tokens advance. And depending on which tokens are available or what are left, that also dictates what you're allowed to do. So it's hard to like get into explaining everything without actually just teaching the game. But it ends up making this cool sort of timer mechanism where you're trying to not only do useful things, but you're trying to anticipate when you should do that thing, like when the best time to do it is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, is pretty cool. They kind of clean up a few things. Like, do you remember how certain structures in Everdell, you can use them to play a critter for free?
Yeah. If you get lucky.
But you have to, yes, you have to have exactly the right structure for the right critter. In this, they keep the color system. So there's the purple cards, the red cards, the brown cards, blue and green. So the 5 different colors. Well, once per game, you can use one structure's color to play any critter of that color. So you don't have to have the perfect combination. You basically get 5 free plays throughout the game. And then you just have to decide what to use when.
You have them available from the beginning?
Well, if you get a blue building played,
Yeah.
you from an action spot, you then also have to get an occupied token as like a little resource to spend. But then you can use that blue building to play any blue creature in your hand for free.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I like that. So they're still tied. Like some critters are still tied to some buildings, but not this one critter to that one building. So it's like,
Yes.
It's still a little restrictive, but it's not like so punishing as the original Everdell.
Yeah. And it's kind of fun to have that synergy because I had like a purple building that I had built. And then, the purple cards are usually they're more expensive and they score more. So there was like, you could play a purple critter that's like 3 berries, but then I ended up having the king who is 7 berries. So it was like, heck yeah, I'm playing this guy for free.
Yeah.
My purple building, you save all these berries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's a hit. And maybe you and I'll get it to the table sometime. I don't know.
Yes, that will become more viable once we are not on other sides of the country from each other.
Keep talking about it. Maybe it'll happen someday.
I know. We're just going to keep throwing it out there. But we got to be swift in this episode because of otherwise external timing. So that means, Nate, if you're
Yes,
ready,
sir.
let's do the game of the week. All right. You ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Type in B and O.
Board game.
Is there a board game called Board Game? Because I want it. I want to play it. All right, now get this. Get this, Nate. I rolled my D20. You're going to select option 1.
No, we're not.
You don't want to talk about Bo Bing from 1660?
Generate another random number.
Nate, I want to talk about Bo Bing.
We'll talk about it later, Cody. I promise.
All right, I'll roll you again. All right, get this, Nate. 2.
Okay. Come on, it's a kid's
Bo
game.
and Les Pirates.
Nah, okay.
What is this? Is
It's
this
a
a French game?
French children's game. Next.
All right, if I roll 3, like, it's going to be legendary and we have to do it. Oh, 16.
Okay, you got it?
Yeah, Nate, are you looking at Dungeons and Dragons Wrath of Ashardalon board game?
Excuse me? Bro, who comes up with the names for these D&D things? It's wild.
I don't know. Wrath of Ashardalon board game.
Board game. Well, I mean, you have to specify board game because it's a D&D thing, right? So you want people to know. Well, dang, so this is ranked 1,064 overall. It's from...
That's not bad.
That's quite high. This is from 2011. So honestly, kind of decently old at this point. Wizards of the Coast, of course. It's a cooperative game. Makes sense, I guess. With quests, cooperative gameplay. What are our mechanisms here? Dice rolling, grid movement, role playing. This just sounds like D&D.
Just in a board game.
Interesting. I wonder if that's really kind of what it is. So I don't know. I'm kind of looking at it here. We got lots of minis, kind of some Battle Lore 2nd edition looking minis. There's a lot of tokens though. To be honest here, this is actually quite the production.
I bet this is expensive.
I bet it's incredibly expensive now.
Let's
What do you
see.
think?
Oh, Amazon 65? I was going to guess like 80 or something. That's not bad.
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff in the box, that's for sure. The map pieces look really boring. They're all squares, and sure you can customize a map, but
Yes.
like they're all just grids. So that seems kind of lame.
Who wants that, right?
But there are
What RPG gamer wants a grid?
there are a lot of like different looks like enemies that all have their own stats. Like they all have this like big player card and all their stats, and then a deck that comes with them, almost like, well, these are characters, I guess. So each character has their own deck of cards. The half-orc, paladin, wizard, dwarf, something else. It's almost given me kind of a Gloomhaven vibe, a little bit.
Maybe this is the pre-Gloomhaven. This is the inspiration.
I mean, you never know, man. It's rated really, or ranked really highly, so obviously it probably had some influence too, especially because it's, 15 years old now. So,
Yeah, it really does have a lot of minis too.
let's look at some ratings here, Cody.
Yeah, you taking the highs or the lows?
I'm going lows.
All right, let me find you some 10s. More 10s than there are 1s.
That's why it's ranked so highly.
Yeah, well, sure.
All right. Our first one says absolute torture. Somebody says it's only good for the minis. Somebody says, is this even winnable? My opinion is that the game was poorly designed, not play tested enough, steaming pile of dragon crap. Exclusively bought for the minis. Worst game I've ever played. As bad as the first one. So obviously, some people, it's really weird when you get it. Like, isn't it crazy that you can get a game that does really, really well? So many people think it's amazing. And yet there's still some people that are like, this is the worst thing ever made. It's kind of crazy.
I don't know. It's like the Tom Vassell rule that you have to make a game that's going to be somebody's favorite, right? And
Well,
I guess that also means it's going to be someone's least favorite. I don't know.
I guess so. Like a divisive game is, I feel like, well, I don't know. I feel like a divisive game does better than a pleasing everybody game because first of all, the latter doesn't really exist. But second of all, the game that's kind of trying to please everybody is going to get lost in the noise. Whereas something
you're
that's
not taking a
divisive,
chance.
something that's divisive is going to like make a mark one way or the other. So
Well, let me read you. I don't want to read you this whole paragraph from a 10, but it did come out April 2025. So with that in mind, Nate, knowing that this review just was posted, they said if you need a single dungeon crawl game, get this one. So they're just throwing Gloomhaven in the dirt. It's like, nope, you don't need that. Trash it. Get this instead.
I kind of wonder. I mean, I don't know. I think I disagree with that. It's 15 years old. There's been a lot of dungeon crawls since 2011. I find it highly unlikely that this is still the best one, objectively.
Yes. I don't know. This person's from the Netherlands. They probably know what they're talking about, man.
I'm not really sure how to interpret that. I
I
know
don't know
a
either.
few people
Just
from the
wanted to point
Netherlands
that
that definitely don't know what they're talking about on a lot of given subjects.
Okay.
Great people. I love them.
Someone from weird. There's like all these reviews are from just like non-US people. There's a US person. I'm actually kind of surprised at like how diverse it is. But here's someone from Germany saying, this is all they put with their 10-star review. Compulsory completion syndrome.
Meaning like
I'm guessing there's like a campaign attached to this, and they had to play the whole thing.
Yeah, something like they've developed a completion syndrome because the game is so compelling. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. All the 10s are kind of like pretty standard. I want to find something that's like funny. I'm not seeing it.
Okay, I was looking through the 10s. I found one here.
All right.
Here's a couple good ones. Can't wait for this to come out. 10.
What?
Initial rating
Okay.
based on components and reading the rules.
No. What have you done?
Oh man! So these
You
are the
better
people.
update that rating real quick, bro.
Man, that's funny. Cody, what'd you play? You swiping left or
I
swiping
would.
right?
Yeah, I would do this. I'm honestly don't. I've never used that app, so I don't know if left or right is
Yeah,
good.
I don't
but
know either.
Yeah, I'd play it. Swipe up, I guess.
I definitely would. I'd give it a shot. I wouldn't be expecting to love it, partially because I don't care that much about D&D, and secondly because it's a 15-year-old dungeon crawl. So it could be halfway decent, but I wouldn't be expecting, it to impact my life incredibly.
I will say I'm not a huge fan of those minis.
Well, they look like old minis. They look
Yeah.
like the Battle Lore minis,
The like
and I don't love it
vintage.
either. Yeah.
They got like one solid color. Like I'd rather them all just be gray and not sort of like a weird orange and blue and off red.
Well, and I mean, they don't have a ton of definition either. If you think about it, like, I don't know, if you think about like some good CMON minis or, I don't know, just what we see today, the amount of detail and definition in minis today, these ones have a lot of like they have detail, but they've got a lot of just kind of flat surfaces without much definition to them as well. So it's kind of a mixture of like still detailed, still quite a few different sculpts as well in the same game, but also kind of like, they're basic minis from 2011, right? So
Yeah. So, all right, maybe we'll come across this at some point. We'll see it in a thrift store for $10. We'll buy it and we'll give it a try.
if I saw this in a thrift store for $10, I would buy it.
And then flip it, right?
I mean, I'd play it first.
I mean, here's the thing. If I'm going to be in a thrift store, it's because I'm going to be thrifting for flipping. So that's probably what I'd do with it. But,
What's the best board game you found at any kind of thrift store?
Well, I've found like 1.5 so far. Because I found Ticket to Ride expansion, which was like sealed. Still haven't sold that yet because I haven't listed it yet. But I have that.
For the original Ticket to Ride or for what? Is it a map or what is it?
I don't remember. It's like a little box. Like I mean, I know they're all going to be little boxes. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know. I didn't look too closely at it. I need to get to. We have a big pile of things to list, so I have to get to that.
Interesting.
But we just played Ravine the other day. Got that for $3, and that wasn't bad.
What's it
Sort
called?
of like a Ravine.
As
Look
in
it up.
like
Give it a shot.
Ravine 2017?
Yeah, that's the one. I wasn't going to mention it because I didn't want to go too long on games I've played. But it's a cooperative game. It's sort of like Robinson Crusoe, really, really simplified.
Okay.
Did we try Robinson Crusoe together?
We did. That was brutal.
Yeah. So this is like simpler than that. Like each turn, everyone has to forage and like find food to keep yourself alive, and you have to find materials to like build stuff to fend off the creatures and the critters. You just have to survive a certain number of nights. But it has sort of a party aspect to it, where if you start a round if you're down to 1 health, you can have up to 6 health total. But if you start with 1, you have to draw a madness card, which is like we didn't play test this at all style like thing that you have to do. Like you cannot speak, you can't use your arms, or you have to sing everything you say.
Interesting. Yeah,
So
that's
pretty
cool.
good kind of like party game. Yeah.
Shout out to Matthew Sisson, who is both the designer and the artist for
Yes.
2017's Ravine. All right, Cody, we should hasten on to our board banter.
We should. And you say it like we have some music that would come up.
I
but we
didn't
don't
say it
have
like
any.
that at all. No, I didn't. We can just keep
Okay.
talking,
All right.
like we always do.
Well, Nate, I'll present this here topic because it was my idea. So there. I get all the credit. All of this is mine. If you have any good takes out of this, I am claiming it. I'm patenting it. And also, if any pennies we make from this episode, I'm going to take all of them, just so you know.
I'll allow it.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're doing game night menus. And I know what you're thinking. Is this recommended snacks to complement your game night experience? No. Nate and I have devised, from 3 topics, a 3-course meal of games that we recommend. So, you're going to have an appetizer game that gets you ready for the game night. Then you're going to have the main course game. So this is going to be the meat and potatoes of the night. And then you're going to have a dessert game to finish it all off with. And pretty open-ended. We didn't really discuss much more than that for how we're going to approach it. My concept was I tried to choose a lighter game at the beginning. Then I chose a main course game that would kind of fit the theme for the evening, followed by a lighter game to kind of cap it all off. So I didn't necessarily have those games tied thematically in how they functioned. It was more just, did they work for the evening? So how about you, Nate? How'd you approach it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, obviously, for our 3 different topics, that was what drove the type of game I was going to pick. And then as far as, like, appetizer, main course, dessert, yeah, I mean, same thing, right? Like, your main course is going to be probably the biggest, heaviest of the 3. The appetizer is going to be something that just kind of gets the juices flowing a little bit, right? Gets you thinking about games, right? Gets you in the mood, maybe an icebreaker kind of a thing. And then the final one is just something that, like, you want to end with a good taste in your mouth, right? So it's not going to be something big and heavy like the main course, but it's going to be something satisfying for sure. Probably not too confrontational, or maybe confrontational, but just like, as long as it leaves a good taste in your mouth, right? So
Good way to end.
exactly.
And a good way to end the podcast. So there's that. And remember, I'm just kidding. Nate, who's going to go first?
You'll go first, Cody, because I don't know.
Okay. Tell you what, I'll go first for the first one. You go first for the second one.
And we'll both go first for the last one.
I like it. Yeah, we'll give them at the same time. Let's do it.
Perfect.
Okay, so our first topic, as suggested by Nate, was you're having the in-laws over for dinner. So how I approach this needs to be a bit lighter. Like, probably for the average gamer, your in-laws...
Because your in-laws are stupid?
Well, you know, they're going to be older. Maybe they're not into those young whippersnapper hobby board games, right? So you're not going to be pulling out Twilight Imperium to play with the fam, right?
Okay, well, I need to
unless
change my
that's
list.
I mean maybe that's, well, you do come from a different family, Nate. You have a lot of siblings, and I mean, you're
But
definitely
we're talking about
gameriest
in-laws,
gamer.
Cody. We're talking about in-laws.
Oh,
not-
that's right. I guess, well, I was trying to present an example of a family. So maybe for Anna, from her perspective, her in-laws are all big gamers. So it would be fine if you had a more intense game night. But I'm just assuming the average audience member. So as the appetizer, I chose King Domino. This is a game that's easy to teach. It's a good time. It's fun to pull out, quick to pull out, and it breaks the ice. Like, some people, like, have even played traditional dominoes, right? Like, maybe they're familiar with how this is going to work. Obviously, it's its own scoring system, but it's not too complicated. I think it's a great way to get things going. Now, you're going to follow this... Oh, what?
I was just going to say, I love me some King Domino, so I approve.
Yeah. Have you played Queen Domino?
I have not played any of the further iterations of King Domino, and I don't know if I need to. None of them seem to have really struck a chord like the first one did, so...
Yeah, we bought Queen Domino, and we played it literally once, and then it sat on our shelf for a long time, and then I sold it. It wasn't terrible. It was just like, the beauty of King Domino is that it's really simple and streamlined. You can play it quickly. Queen Domino, there's like twice as many rules you have to remember, so it kind of takes away the magic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, main course time. We need a game. Let's just be honest. We're going to do a cooperative game, right? Like, especially if these other folks aren't gamers. You need something that you can help run with everybody. You need something where people can just work together and have a good old time. And maybe, maybe you're not like on great terms with your in-laws, so maybe you don't want to play a competitive game and everyone gets upset at each other. Like, that's possible too. So I would suggest you play Mysterium. It's going to be longer and more in depth. but it's not going to be super taxing on new players or even just non-gamers in general. And you can run everything as the ghost yourself and then just let everyone else work together. And it's always kind of goofy and fun too. Despite the theme, it's a fairly lighthearted game where you're trying to put out these random acid trip adventure dream cards, and people are trying to figure out what the heck you mean by them and what person, place, or thing they relate to. So yeah, Mysterium, that's what I'm throwing at you.
Have you played Mysterium Park?
I have not. I believe it is on my to acquire list, but my understanding is it's just kind of a streamlined version of Mysterium.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but I think I like Mysterium, and if I was gonna get a version, I would probably get Mysterium Park. But
it'd be cheaper for sure.
There you go.
Maybe you should get it, and then you can let me know. Let me know how it punches.
I'll let you know in the comments.
All right. Well, okay, sure. All right. Well, after this, you've got to follow it up with a nice dessert, right? You need. You can't have something too heavy, especially if these folks aren't gamers. Like, why are you playing 3 games at this point anyway? I don't know, but it's the topic we're going with. So finish off with my recommendation of Fantasy Realms. It's going to be a good contrast in game style. There's a bit of some competitiveness to it now, but it's an easy game to pick up. And here's the thing. The games play so quickly. Like, you could play a round of Fantasy Realms in maybe 10 minutes. So you can play as many or as few of them as you want until you have concluded the night. I think it's just a good way to wrap everything up.
Yeah, I mean, Fantasy Realms is fantastic. I don't know if I would introduce the in-laws based solely on the fact that it's kind of... I remember it being kind of ugly. Is it an ugly game?
It depends on your taste, I guess.
Well, that's not a very helpful answer.
I don't think it's an ugly game. I think it has good art.
Okay. There's a couple games in my collection where I'm like, this is a good game, but I don't know if I want to play it with people that I don't want them to think that I'm like kind of a loser for having a game that looks like this. You know what I mean?
Give me an example of one of these games. Give me a loser game.
Like Veil of Eternity. I feel like anytime I pull out Veil of Eternity, I have to apologize in advance for the art in the game because I think it's terrible. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, you kind of get some like I'm an anime nerd vibes if you play Veil of Eternity.
It feels like rip-off Pokemon art. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't like it.
Yeah, a little. Okay, that makes. I didn't understand what you meant at first, and now it makes sense.
All right, Cody. For in-laws, for me, I agree. You want something that's not going to be confrontational for sure. So we're definitely going the non-confrontational route with my 3-course meal here, and furthermore, just with my situation, I decided to make all the games language independent, or at least for the most part. So, first and foremost, though, we're going to break out with some Scout as the appetizer, right? I mean, It's like a trick-taking game. A lot of people have played trick-taking games. They know how that works. So it functions similarly to that, but it's more interesting, right? And something about Scout, just every time I play it with somebody who hasn't played it before, by the end of you play 3 hands or 4 hands or whatever. By the end of it, they're usually pretty fascinated by it. Maybe after the first round, they don't really get it yet. It hasn't clicked. But by the time you get to the last round, it's like usually it's clicked and they're pretty fascinated by how the hand shedding works. And so I think it hits pretty much every single time. So that's a great one to start out with the in-laws, right?
Yeah, I considered Scout as a starter game, but because it takes a little bit to click, that's why I kind of avoided it. But
yeah,
I can respect that still.
It's got a little more rules overhead probably than something like King Domino for sure. But then up as the main course, we've got Tiny Towns. Now, Tiny Towns is a little confrontational because essentially what you're doing in this game, I haven't talked about it in quite a while, but essentially what you're doing is you're doing a little bit of city building, but you're doing it with colored cubes. So there's 5 or 6 different colors of cubes. And there's a few random buildings that you're trying to build with these cubes. And so to build this building, you might need these cubes in this color in this orientation on your city map. And once you get those cubes in that orientation, boom, you get to take a little wooden standee of that building, place it on your map on one of those squares, and then remove the other cubes. So you're placing 3, 4, 5 cubes down. Once you successfully build the right pattern, then you put a little standee down or a little wooden building down that just takes up one square. So essentially, your map starts to get more and more congested because as you're placing buildings, those are plots that you can no longer place cubes on to build new buildings, right? So it slowly gets a little bit more congested. But the cool part about this game is on your turn, you pick one color of cube. It's literally all you do. You just pick a color of cube, and everyone at the table has to take that cube and has to put it on their board somewhere, right? So that's the really fun part where it's like, you can't just take whatever color cubes you want all the time and just, live in your perfect little world and build your buildings, because there's 2 or 3 other people at the table that are going to determine, out of 4 cubes, you're only picking one of the colors that you're actually going to get, and the other 3 colors are determined by the other players at the table. So it's got fun interaction, and it flows really well. So I love me some tiny towns.
All right.
I
dig it.
Last up, a great, I would say palate cleanser, but that's not really the point of dessert. A great sweet spot to end the night. A game that, in my opinion, almost always hits, and it's very non-confrontational. This is Next Station London. It's a very short flip and right, where you flip one card in the middle, and then everyone's doing their own little networking on their board. There's virtually no player interaction, which is fine for a situation like this. And I also love this game to death. So. Next Station London.
I need to play this again. I think after I played this, I put it on my to acquire list. I think. I'm pretty sure I did. If I didn't, then I will. But I enjoyed it. So yeah, I can recommend.
I mean, I don't know. I could see that it's a kind of game that you play 3 or 4 times and then you're kind of done with it. But for whatever reason, because that's what I thought. I was like, oh, it feels like there's a lot of luck. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of replayability. I've probably played between Tokyo, London, and Paris. I've probably played it like 40 times now at this point. So
dang, okay.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, there's some love for this game then.
Okay, so next up is our serious game night. So this is when you got the boys over, or girls, and we're about to break into some serious games, right? Some games that ain't got no time for jokes. So we're going to kick it off with our appetizer. Fromage. I don't know. I just played it relatively recently. I don't know if I ever talked about it on the podcast. But it's a full game, but it plays in probably an hour, maybe a little bit less, even though it looks like it should be a 2-hour game. And it has mechanisms of a 2-hour game. But Fromage is a cool game where the board is divided into quarters, and it's a lazy Susan. So on your turn, you take an action on the part of the board that's in front of you. Everyone does it simultaneously, and when everyone's done, then you spin the board 90 degrees so that the next section of the board is facing you, and you take an action on that board. So that's really cool. But furthermore, you have these little cheese meeples that you're placing down of your color, and whichever direction whenever they're pointing towards you again, you get to take them back, right? Because the board's spinning. So I might place a cheese in front of me, like on the section of the board that's in front of me, and it might be pointing directly away from me. So that means in 2 turns, it's going to be pointing at me again, and that's when I'll get to take it off the board. And the reason you point them in different directions is because you're aging the cheese. So if you have it pointing to the left, it's not going to pointing to the right. It's not going to point at you until 3 turns. So that's like a really nice aged cheese, which means that whatever that action was is going to be more valuable. Whereas if it's pointing to the left, then as soon as you spin it, it's going to be pointing towards you again. So you get it back right away to use, which is the useful part. But the bonus you got out of it wasn't as useful because it was aged, pretty quickly. So 2 very cool mechanisms that work very well together. There's some other things going on. Each section of the board is basically a mini game for scoring, but it's a really cool game. It's mid-weight, but it plays really quickly because everything's simultaneous, and it's a fun game.
What I'm getting from this is they took the Formaggio expansion from Viticulture and they turned it into a whole game.
In theme, sure. Yeah, why not?
Hey, you age cheese, you got to put the cheese tokens down and wait a couple turns before you use them. So there you go. Same thing. Identical.
Oh, I should also preface this that I was looking at the serious game night as 4-player games because I was like, all right, we're having people over. We're going to do 4-player games, right? I got 3 other of my gamer buddies over. Let's do some serious gaming, right? Which made it easier because I was like, otherwise I'm just picking 3 strategy games. How do I do it? So this way I could narrow it down to like okay, each game is one that needs to play like best at 4 or really, really well at 4, right? Because there's a lot of games that play best at 3 and don't play well at 4 because they're way too long. So this was a way of like naturally kind of narrowing that down for me. So next up, as our main course, our solid 90-minute game is going to be Root. Get a good old-fashioned game of Root in, man.
Yep.
4-player Root, there's nothing like it. You can try 3, it's okay. You can try the modified expansion or whatever to do 2. Doesn't work that well, I don't think. But 4-player Root is fantastic. Super asymmetric war-style game. And so much fun to play with and learn how to use the factions. Quite a bit of rules overhead. There's a lot of rules you need to know going into the game because you need to know your own faction in and out, but you need to know everybody else's faction so you can actually deal with them because it's a conflict game, right? So, and it just looks fantastic on top of that. So our main course is Root. Eating some roots.
I'm enjoying this game night so far.
Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to top it off, Cody, with something that I don't believe you've played. It's much lighter, but it's still another full game. We're talking probably an hour-long game. This is Small World. Small World, for whatever reason, I just love. It's another conflict game, area control, but it's got this cool mechanism where you've got a bunch of different races and then a bunch of different like powers, and you randomly mix them up in a market so that you have like a random character with a random power that comes out in a market, and then you get to draft one. But they come out in pairs, random pairs. So you're drafting a pair, and so you're basically drafting 2 special powers together at the same time, which is really cool because every time you play the game, you're going to get different combinations, like the flying skeletons or, like whatever, right? So you're getting wacky combos and 2 different abilities that maybe mesh super well, and that means it's super valuable. Or maybe they don't mesh well at all, right? And it's a terrible one. So, but you're drafting them, right? You're not like forced to take anything. So that's really cool. And then you're using that to basically do some area control stuff on the board. And after 2 or 3 rounds, you kind of start to run out of characters. So you need to get a new race. So your race, if you're the flying skeletons, goes into decline. They stay on the board. They'll still earn you some passive points, but you don't get to do anything else with them. And you draft a new combo. And so you're going to do that like 2 or 3 times over the course of the game. Have a race go into decline and draft a new one. It's really cool. And then all the stuff on the board is pretty basic, kind of risk style, taking over territories and stuff. But it's about those special abilities and stuff that really makes it fun. So, Small World.
Okay. Yeah, this has never really been on my radar. I've been aware of it, that it exists. But yeah, I haven't heard a full breakdown like that. So, okay, I'm intrigued.
So there we go. There's our serious game night, Cody.
All right. Okay, so yeah, I guess you didn't go mega intense with your main course. That was still a serious game. But that's good because I took the same approach. I was considering like, okay, do I just need to pick like the heaviest game for the main course? But nah, I went for the whole game night is going to be long and a bit taxing, but that doesn't mean that every game has to be like the most incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
So the appetizer, it has to be lighter and quicker than the main course, right? But this is a night for serious gamers. So we're not going to play like some pansy King Domino or fantasy realms. Or
Did you just call your in-laws
like
pansies?
Well, I call the game pansies, not the people playing it, all right? So, okay,
sure.
There's a clarification there. Nah, get all that crap out of here. We need a game that's going to set up and plays quickly, but still gives you a headache. And I'm going to come at you with Furnace.
Dude, that's almost what I picked as my appetizer.
Dude, that would have been interesting to have a crossover.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll have a crossover for the rest of this?
I think we might have a crossover on our last one, but I don't think so.
Okay. I mean, hey, that's good if we get lots of different options, because if so, that's 18 different games we're throwing at people. Although it's still only 3 game nights, whatever. So, Furnace would be a great starter game. It's going to get the juices flowing. It's going to get the brain working. But it isn't going to burn you out for the rest of the night, because it's probably like 45 minutes to an hour, depending on like how experienced the players are. And so I approached this assuming we'd have 5 players for the game night. So
that makes it even easier to narrow down some stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But Furnace, it is a 4-player game, but if you have the expansion, you can play with up to 5 players. So that's why I allowed it.
So this is 18 games in one expansion.
Kind
of gatekeeping the game night, Cody.
gatekeeping because you can't afford an expansion. Come on, man. You can buy Furnace Interbellum.
Not with these
I
tariff
did.
prices.
And then I sold it. Yeah, I should have kept it. I should have waited before I sold all my games. I could have doubled the price, man. Been awesome.
That's rude.
Okay. So now the main course game, this is a game that I have talked about plenty, so maybe it's not going to be super thrilling. But here's the thing. For the main course, it's time for hard planning, it's time for careful tactics, and you need some direct conflict, right? The boys are over. The boys need to have a good time. We need to fight it out. So all things considered, yes, this game isn't as heavy compared to some other mega intense games.
Tapestry.
But I figured, nope, not Tapestry. Okay. But, I figured we're a game night where there's lots of players. If we're saying 5, we need a game that can do well and even thrive at 5 players. Some games, they can just manage 5 players and they suck.
Yes.
But no, we need a game that's going to do great. So I have picked my all-time favorite game, Scythe.
Okay.
We're all furnace up. It's time to unleash the flames of war, as the kids say on the street. And Scythe is going to give you an epic game night experience with a strong table presence. And there are all sorts of expansions that you can throw in there to spice things up if you want to have some more different experiences, especially if you have Fenris and you have some new factions that you can play with and the modules. Even if people played Scythe a whole bunch, you can still get some fun variety in there.
Well,
so
Cody, right now you're 2 for 2 on your serious game night with games that have cute little wooden thematic resources. So are we going to go 3 for 3?
No, Mansions. Oh, dang, I gave it away, Nate. You got me. No, cut that, Nate.
Cut
that part right now.
I got it.
All right. Well, I guess we're stuck now. Yeah, Mansions of Madness is dessert. That's what we're having. And no, there are not cute little wooden resources. There are atrocious fantasy flight games like Cardboard Everything.
Now,
well,
I'll let you explain yourself because I'm wondering why you picked this as dessert.
Yes. So here's the thing. So we're closing the night, and this is a game that's going to play longer but require a bit less brain power. So people are probably a bit tired at this point. But like when you've been gaming a while, you kind of start getting a bit worn out if you've been playing lots of heavy games, but it's like you still have some juice, like you still want to stick around for a while. So Mansions of Madness is a good option to where the decisions you have to make are not going to be super complicated, but you're going to be committed for a long time. So I feel like it's a good way to kind of extend the evening out. And Mansions of Madness has lots of different games that you can play of different lengths. So you could choose like an hour-long session, or if people really, really want to go and it's like a late game night, you could potentially have like a 4-hour Mansions of Madness game that you're going to play. So it's got some good versatility to it, and that's why I chose it.
Maybe we've talked about this. Is this your favorite of this kind of series?
I enjoyed this more than Journeys in Middle-earth. I think the system is a bit more refined. All that being said, like these types of systems kind of have their problems, so I kind of want to keep trying a few different ones and see if I can get one that's even better. And I know there are quite a few.
Yeah, there's
for what I've
Imperial
played so
Assault.
Far. Yeah, there's someone just told me about another one recently, and I forgot to write it down, so now I don't remember.
Mansions of Madness First Edition.
I want to say it was like more of like a no, it was like a fantasy-esque one. Yeah, I'm probably not going to be able to find out.
It's hard to find, right? Because it's not like commands and colors or something where that you can like look up the family, because I don't think they're lumped like that.
Maybe like Fantasy Flight Games has like on their webpage, maybe they have groups of all these together. So I'll get back to you on that. But
okay.
that is for me a nice solid gamery game night.
Sounds good, man. So we're both going simultaneously here on the last one.
Yeah, all right. So no, tell you what, let's roll a d20.
All right.
How do you like that? It's gonna be a trust system, but I'm just rolling a
trust. You trust me, don't you?
I don't know. It depends on if you rolled higher than a 15.
All right, I rolled a 23.
I mean, what are your base stats? You have like plus 20?
I rolled a 2.
Okay. All right. Yeah, get that crap out of here. I'm going first here. Nate, we are doing a date night. Not you and I, but we're doing a date night theme.
Pump the brakes there, bucko.
Okay, all right. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, all sorts of things. Talking about doing date nights, OnlyFans. This is a wacky episode, man. What do we get ourselves into? Okay, so this is going to be a 2-player emphasis. So I was thinking this is going to have more involved gaming than if you were with your pansy in-laws, as Nate called them.
I'm sorry, what?
It was all you, man.
I
not
called
me.
yours pansies, not mine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's fine. But we also need games that are light enough to still make it a chill night for you and your significant other. So, appetizer, we're going to kick off the night with good old Seven Wonders Duel. You can't go wrong here. Solid game. Has
I
lots
don't know,
of
man.
interaction, too. What? You fighting me on this one?
I am gonna fight
What
you
you
on
got
this
against
one.
Duel, homie?
It's really aggressive. It's all about hate drafting.
But here, see, this is the thing. If you're doing a date night, you don't want a game where, like, you're just playing your own game by yourself over here next to your person.
Yeah.
You need a game that has lots of interaction. So I thought this could be a good way to kind of, like, get it out there. And Kirsten and I love playing this game, and you know that we're not super confrontational gamers, but for some reason we both have a grand old time playing Duel.
Okay.
So, you know, and here's the thing. It kind of leads into the next game. Because maybe you're warmed up, someone just won and they're feeling good, and the other person lost and they're ready for some revenge. So let's have an opportunity to fight things out here, but in a chill way. And we've already talked about this earlier in the episode. We're going to play Viticulture, Nate. A game that is both relaxing and engaging, and it has a good balance of letting you just do whatever you want. Like maybe the other person hate drafted you to heck in the first game and you got really frustrated. Well, you can do what you want in Viticulture, but there are still opportunities to mess with the other player. I think it just has a good balance. And Kirsten and I, we always have a great time playing this game. Never gets old. We have that quaint Viticulture playlist that we'll put up and kind of help set the mood. And that's probably half of what makes the game is that playlist.
Honestly, dude,
if I'm being honest,
I've transitioned to literally just listening to the Unravel soundtrack when we play Viticulture because it's just fantastic.
Well, Unravel 1 and 2,
yes,
right?
Sir.
Yeah, got to get both of those. So yeah, that's Viticulture. Well, that's the main course. Now we're talking about dessert time. So this one's a little bit different. It can depend on if you and your person are getting tired. Like maybe you need something to kind of like wind down a bit with. You're not ready for a super strong, intense, crazy game night. So we need a game that's just going to have some wacky fun. So need a game that you can both plan well and make wise decisions. So you're still doing some stuff, but you can also just get really unlucky in a painfully funny way.
Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring deck builder?
Honestly, that for what I just described, yes, that will certainly qualify. But no, I'm coming at you with Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, so this is a game that has a great catch-up mechanism. So if one of you is either being really greedy or lucky or both, the other person can get a boost with those little rat tokens, and it just keeps the competition fairly even throughout the game.
You know what's funny?
So, yeah.
We love to talk about the catch-up mechanism, and I do like it. It's fun. It's a good catch-up mechanism. It's interesting. It's engaging. This game always has a runaway winner. Like, almost always, despite that.
Yeah, I guess it kind of does. I don't know. I think the last game Kirsten and I played was pretty tight. But yeah, that is kind of the exception and not the rule.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
sounds like a good date night,
the
Cody.
ideal date night. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. What is your ideal game night date night?
So I went down a similar vein. Obviously, we want games that are not going to be too confrontational. Not that Anna and I don't like that specifically, because we do. But I'm just talking about in general here, date night games. You don't want something that's going to be too much like Take Thatty or in the other person's face, right? Seven Wonders Duel, for example.
You want to come away not hating each other at the end of the game night.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
So Stronghold no.
Yes.
So as our appetizer, but by the way, spoilers, we are not going to have any crossover, Cody.
Okay.
As our appetizer.
That's all right. That's good. Good to have originality.
We are going to do a cooperative game. All right. Now, this is a cooperative game, but it's actually a pretty intense game at the same time. This is a game called Bomb Busters, which is kind of like, it has a similar idea as The Crew. It's not a trick taker, but it's like a game where you have a bunch of little tiles in front of you, a bunch of like numbered tiles that were randomly distributed. numbers 1 through 12, and there's 4 of each number, but they've been randomly distributed between all the players. And you are trying to guess the other person's numbers, essentially, without being able to see any of them, which sounds impossible, right? Sounds like the mind, kind of. But it's altogether possible, and it's got a couple other little things in it. There's some little equipment things you can use that give you a bonus. Whenever you guess wrong, you get a little bonus. So there's some little bonuses that keep you afloat when the going gets rough. But it's got a lot of the same logic as a game like The Crew does. And it also has a lot of deduction logic as well, based on what people do. So I've probably played it 10 or 12 times, maybe even 15 times at this point, because it's pretty fast, and you can just play like a few scenarios one after the other. And in the base box, there's like 100 different scenarios, because they start adding more and more things in that make it more difficult. So it's pretty fun.
Dude, the designer, though, what a name. Hisashi Hayashi.
I love it. Sounds like he makes good games.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bomb Busters is quite a bit of fun. And then we're getting on to our main course. This is something that's not as interactive as yours, but it's still very peaceful. It's very calming. You can have a lot of fun with it and just relax. This is Cascadia. Cascadia is a beautiful game. You can do a little bit of hate drafting. You really don't have to, though. Mostly you're focusing on what helps you. And it's a very peaceful experience. It's kind of map building, which is always fun, some pattern building, and some nice colors, some pretty animals, some mediocre art. I love it.
Yeah, only 2 pieces of art drafted for the entire game.
And last but not least, we're going to end with the tiniest card game, actually, that I've ever played, I think. And you can play it in like 3 to 7 minutes, probably somewhere in that range. So you can just kind of sit down and just crank out a few games of it until you're like, all right, we're done. Let's end the night, right? This is Love Letter. And since I technically, I guess, have to put games that I've played, we're going to have to go with Love Letter Bridgerton specifically because it's the only version I've played.
That's funny.
So,
like from the show?
Yes, like from the show. So we're locking in Love Letter Bridgerton as my dessert for the evening. Basically, all the versions of Love Letter, I believe, are effectively the same. They just kind of are skinned a little differently. No, reskinned.
Skinned alive.
A Love Letter Bridgerton skinned edition. No, but it's right. Love Letter's great. It's just a back and forth playing cards. It's kind of in your face, but it's so low stakes that it doesn't really matter. And again, the games are so short that you can just crank out a few of them in a row. So to anybody that likes little card play back and forth games, pick up some copy of Love Letter and you'll have some fun with it. It's basically, it's got a bunch of cards with special powers that do different things and you're just trying to earn a few points. It's a race game. So that is my final pick, Love Letter Bridgerton.
A romantic pick for a romantic evening.
Yes, sir.
Well, that was fun. I feel like we've never done something like that where we've suggested game pairings,
Yeah, I guess the closest we've come was, didn't you do something where you paired games with, you did a video back in the day where you paired games with tea. That's what it was, tea.
Yeah, that's right. But then we also did games with soundtracks.
Yes, sir.
We've done that as a
was
banter.
A good one.
Yeah.
No,
whoa, we did that as a 2-parter, didn't we?
The soundtracks one? No.
Yeah. No, we didn't? Okay.
You're thinking of, we did like games that represent a mechanism. I think we did that one twice.
Oh, and then we did real board game titles.
Oh, yeah.
We did twice.
I think we might have done that one twice too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good times, man.
Good times.
In case you're still with us, this is episode 59. Cody and I will be doing one more episode of the Tabletop Shop podcast, and then we will be taking, it sounds a little too extreme to say an indefinite pause, but that's essentially what it is. I think we both like to come back to this at some point in the future, and hopefully we will.
Oh, show.
But we'll take a little break. We're going to be doing some things just on our YouTube channel, playing some Gloomhaven Digital, maybe some other digital games. So.
And I know it's not going to be like the permanent last episode, but we should still do something special for our pause episode,
Yeah, we should. And we'll definitely think of something. And I just want to take this moment to remind you and the audience that we have an agreement, Cody, that when we hit, if we ever do, episode 100, we are going to do our top 100 games of all time.
It's getting closer, man. It's getting closer. I mean, if we come back to this maybe 6 months from now, just like as a guess, and if we keep doing an episode like once, well, yeah, we probably, okay, we're good, dude.
It's a
we
few
have like
years.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Yeah.
Whew. Dodge that bullet for a while.
No, it's future Tabletop Shop's problem.
At least we're monetized now, right? We can get at least 5 cents for that episode.
I feel like you keep bragging about that, but we like kind of aren't. Like we are, but you know.
Hey, we get like 2 cents an episode.
Hey,
It's pretty good.
That's what's up.
It's gonna add up. We're gonna pay for our tickets to Dice Tower East in a couple years.
Should we do that? Should we just put it forward to something like that? Like anything we
We
earn?
totally should, dude.
It's kind of a good
Yeah,
idea.
let's just let it build up, and then once we can finally go like on a Dice Tower cruise or something,
Yes.
we'll use the money for
Dice
that.
Tower Cruise 2049. Here we come.
Yeah, baby. And remember, now that you're done here, why not go watch our Gloomhaven digital videos?
Cody, I gotta say I like your outro, but I can't help but, wonder if it might have been better for episode 60.
I don't know, man. Maybe I'll come up with something real special.
You're gonna have to
for
top
our
it.
last outro. I gotta do something. I've had some bangers in the past. You know what I'm saying?
You have, dude.
Some good
What's your
ones.
most legendary one you can think of right now? Clock's ticking.
I don't remember. That's what's ironic. It's because you're supposed to remember, man.
Ah, Cody. How about one where you were like, and remember, I forgot. I think you did that once.
I think I did. Okay, that was good. Anyway, peace.